process that you take to get to the place that you're trying to go is so important. Last week, I talked about staying committed to this process. However, I didn't speak too much on how to build the process. So that's what we're going to do today. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Husband's Coach's Corner, the podcast that teaches husbands how to love their wife every day and become better men in the process. I'm your host, Chris Scott, aka the Husband Coach.
Yo, what is up to all my husbands out there? Welcome back to another episode right here at the Husband Coach's Corner. This is actually a pretty exciting episode, and I got a lot of information to unpack. So I'm just going to jump right into it and start getting into creating your process. So the first thing that you want to do is develop your goal. What is the goal that you have in mind that you have to work towards? Doesn't matter what it is. All right. We're going to say once a week, spending time with our wives. That's a goal. All right, put it on the calendar, write it down on a piece of paper. Now, we have to figure out what it is we need to do in order to achieve that goal. So, maybe the first thing is you got to pick a date that you're going to spend time with your wife. Whatever day you put on the calendar, right? So that's the first step in the process. You got to pick a date, right? The second step in the process is maybe picking a time. You got to get a date, you got to get a time. And then the next step in the process would be selecting the event or the thing that you're going to do when you're spending time with your wife. Now, this is a very simple process. I think many people can rationalize, but the steps of creating the process are still the same. You choose a goal, and then you figure out how you're going to get to that goal. Now, when it comes to loving our wives, I think sometimes we don't focus too much, or enough, I should say, on the goals that get us to the ultimate goal, which, if you love your wife every single day, finding a way to love your wife every single day, you are 100% on the path. You are committed to the process of being in a long-term loving relationship with your wife, a genuine relationship, not something that's made up or the fairy tale stuff that we see on TV, all that nonsense. No, you are well on your way to developing a relationship that other people will want to model after. So staying committed to the process is important, but knowing what your process is even more important. The process of getting to this long-term committed relationship, it happens with ups and downs, right? Some days are going to be good and some days are going to be bad. But that's okay. That's just the norm. That's the process. That's the way it goes. Don't sweat it. When you write your process out, don't overcomplicate it. Be detailed, but don't overcomplicate it. Dates, times, those things absolutely matter. What you're going to wear could be important if you're talking about going to places where you have to have a specific attire or whatever the thing is. But overall, you don't have to make this a complicated thing, right? Make your process something that can be consistent in the way that you do things, so that way you can continue doing it. I talked about this before about incorporating the process or incorporating things into your routine so that it's not getting you out of what you normally do. Now, yes, there's going to be a level of sacrifice, especially if you're adding something to your routine or to your daily schedule, whatever it may be. that normally just isn't there. That's going to become something that, you have to work through, but that's also part of the process. And there's nothing wrong with that. Embrace the process. Like there's so many people who they think that the goal is to get married. And if this is you, I want you to take heart that the goal is not to get married. Boys, kids, they can get married. Anybody can show up to an altar and say, I do, and have no real commitment, no real plan on how they do, right? So if this is you, that's okay. As long as, you're listening to this podcast and you're saying, okay, it's time for me to figure out how I do. And the way that I'm going to do that is finding a way to love my wife every day. This is the reason why I deliver drills at the end of most of my podcasts, because I want you guys to have a tangible action step that you can apply immediately that is going to either develop you or it's going to change your characteristic and your mannerism towards your wife. So it's that much easier for you to find a way to love her every single day. Now, if you are not investing the time in yourself to develop that way and to get a plan, then, you're going to have an uphill battle, and marriage is not going to be what you expect it to be. Because you're going to think that just because you're married, that your wife is obligated to do some things. And that's a whole nother conversation. However, I will leave you with this. This is a short episode. I will leave you with this. When you get married, it is paramount that you decide where you're going in your marriage. Don't leave this up to chance or a roll of the dice or we'll see where we're going. It's like GPS. If I know that I'm driving from one end of the country to the other end of the country, I have to know the direction to start traveling. And if I travel in the wrong direction, then I'm I'm technically on a detour. And that could be good. You can learn some things along the way on a detour. Absolutely. But it can also be a little discouraging because you didn't develop what your plan was going into the trip. And now you wasted all this time and you feel some type of way about that. It's important that you don't feel some type of way. One, bounce back and get on the path. It is so important for everyone, newlyweds or just people who have been married for years. It is so, so important that you figure out what your plan is. Now, here's the drill for this week, because I think that it is really good for you to develop what your process is. So hopefully over, a little while, you've developed your goals that you want to personally achieve as a husband in the marriage. I'm not talking about like individual goals, like I want to lose 50 pounds or whatever. Those are great. Absolutely. You can develop a plan and a process for that. But in your marriage, as a husband, what is the plan that you are setting out for yourself and developing so you can actually become the man that your wife deserves in her life? What is that plan? Now, or what are those goals? And then what is it that you have to do to get those plans done? Or to achieve that goal, I should say. So here's the drill for the week. Write out all of the goals that you have for being a husband. It could be, I want to be a more compassionate empathetic communicator. Okay? Maybe that's your goals. Those three things. And you can have a bunch of them. I recommend that you only focus on three at the most. One is great, especially for the week. And if you've never mapped out a plan for yourself, definitely focus on one. Don't make this overly complicated. I said that earlier. So your goal is to become a better communicator. Now, that can mean a lot of different things. So now maybe the plan is developing one step, which is a milestone of, in order for me to become a better communicator, I first have to learn to listen. Maybe that's the first step. I don't know. Do an assessment on yourself. How well do you listen? I have an episode about the 4 listening styles. It'll be in the show notes. Check that out. Figure out what your listening style is. Maybe that's your first step. Then the second step is I need to learn how to articulate myself when I get into these situations, whatever it is. Maybe you have a hard time talking to your wife about finances, right? That seems to be a sticking point in every marriage. Maybe you have a hard time talking to your wife about the way she sleeps in the bed. Maybe she snores, right? And you're like, oh man, this is embarrassing. I don't want to tell her that she snores because then she's going to feel some type of way and then make me feel weird. And then everybody's feeling weird, right? That could be another thing. I don't know. But maybe this is your milestone. And eventually you have to say, okay, these milestones are met. And then you do a self-assessment right before you say, did I meet this goal? Right? I met this goal. You do a self-assessment right before you say, I met this goal. You know, and that self-assessment is, I did all these things. Am I a better communicator because of it? And if the answer to that is yes, check the block, right? Better communicator does not mean perfect communicator. I got to be very clear on that. You should always be looking to refine the way that you communicate with your wife, because that is how you are going to grow, not only as a communicator, but as an empathetic, loving husband for a woman who is also changing and growing over the years that you two are going to be married. So you definitely want to look at that. But again, the drill here is very simple. Take some goals and develop some milestones that will get you to those goals. Now, here's the kicker to this whole thing. And many people, they start by getting started. I have started. Well, good for you. I'm not going to knock you. Good for you. You started. But did you finish? Because if you didn't, then you got work to do. And that's where I was coming from with the commit to the process. You got to stay committed to the process because there's still work to be done. And if your only goal is to get to the goal, then you're missing the point. All right. The point is to be present, to be loving, and to develop that relationship in a way that is, just truly genuine. Once you get to a goal, you should look for another goal similar to it, but it stretches you a little bit further. I'm not one that says you got to have a goal that's 15 times larger than your capacity to achieve so you can feel like you're stretching yourself. Nah, that's for the birds. All right. What I'm saying is generate a goal that genuinely inspires you and is attainable by you. Because if you make the goal too large, then you're probably going to sit on the couch and stay in your comfort zone. We want the goal to be something that you feel you can reach. So you step outside of your comfort zone, because nobody across the history of time have made it to their end goals by staying in their comfort zone. And if they did, then they didn't have a very good goal, right? Maybe their goal was to stay in their comfort zone. And if that's the case, then yes, those people absolutely made it. But that's not what we're doing here, right? What we're doing is stretching ourselves so we can grow. And in order to grow, we got to step outside of our comfort zone. So, like I said, today it was a short episode. I just wanted to give some ground rules on staying or building a process that you can stay committed to. Hopefully, you found this podcast helpful. If you did, and you're listening on a platform where it allows you to subscribe or follow, then go ahead and do that. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not on a platform that allows you to do that, that's perfectly fine. The real goal here is to share the message and to continue building husbands across the globe, wherever you may be. So with that, I want you guys to find a way to love your wife every day. Peace.